And away we go.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
And now, the moment you've all been waiting for, the one, the only, the Bradley Hall.
Oh my gosh. Thank you. Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I want to welcome you to today's edition of the Bradley Hall Show. And I am your host, the Bradley Hall. Thank you again. Hi, welcome back. I am the Bradley Hall. This is my second podcast. I'm a holistic life coach and a trauma recovery coach and a mindfulness instructor. And you can find more information about what I do at thebradleyhall.com. And also my YouTube channel, The Bradley Hall, aka The Health Preacher. This is my podcast. And in my podcast, I am committed to discussing and having difficult conversations and in an attempt to discover the truth around subjects that I think are important for people to have accurate information, be able to make more informed decisions that positively impact their physical health, their mental health. That includes nutrition and exercise and meditation, relationships, and those type of things. So I appreciate you tuning in, and we'd like to ask you to like, share, and subscribe, and help us spread the word. As I said, this is our second podcast, and the first was very special. And if you haven't checked it out, please do so. I discussed my NPE status. NPE is not parent expected, and discovering that my father wasn't my biological father at a very late age. And I had two very special guests and a twist on the podcast, so be sure to check that out. I'm very grateful to have those two guests as my first podcast. But today is also special, and I actually think that I'm probably going to say that a lot. I have a lot of very interesting people that are close to me lined up in the future. So again, be sure that you subscribe. A little over 15 years ago, I embarked on a journey of self-discovery that can only be described as remarkable. Each step I've taken through this process, I've learned not only more about myself, but about human behavior in general. It's opened a lot of doors, and it's taken me farther than I ever thought possible. And the more I go through this journey, the more I realize it's just beginning. That there's so much more ahead of me. In this journey, I faced some personal demons, and it's been dark at times, but it's been truly a rewarding journey. And you'll hear me say often that I've been through more in my lifetime than most people will ever go through their lifetime, and that is accurate. And albeit some of it self-inflicted, but it's still a lot of trauma. But I've chosen to learn from each experience, and I'm looking to bring that here to this podcast. But what I didn't realize through a lot of the self-inflicted trauma in itself was how much the self-inflicted trauma is actually attributed to many of the other traumatic things that happened to me as I was growing up. And I began to learn that that's what trauma does. And that's our topic today. My guest today is Bobbi Parish. Bobbi Parish she's a trauma recovery coach and the executive director of the International Association of Trauma Recovery Coaches. She endured many years of childhood abuse, and that led to her battle with mental illness. Bobbi experienced a few occasions of homelessness and hospitalizations, psychiatric hospitalizations. And because of those things, as she came out, she wanted to create a recovery model that better supported people who had endured trauma. She pioneered the field of trauma recovery coaching and set up the first certification program in the entire world. Today, she teaches hundreds of students how to be high quality trauma informed coaches. And she and her wife Sarah are parents of 3 teenagers, and they split their time between Fort Worth, Texas, and Bristol in the United Kingdom. She is quite lucky to have met Bobbi. I'm actually certified through her program. I'm a trauma recovery coach through her program. And not only did I join to get the certification to learn more about coaching, but in the process, I took another giant leap in my own recovery. And for that, I'm extremely grateful for Bobbi. All right, welcome, Bobbi.
Welcome. Thank you, Bradley, for having me.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. I'm so glad you're here. We have so much we can talk about, for sure. So.
Yes, and I think a lot of things that need to be heard and said. There's so much fear out there that's overriding everything else.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to having this discussion with you.
Sure. Good. Me too. Been looking forward to it all week, since we talked about it. So at first, I want to talk a little bit about you.
Okay.
We read your bio.
Yeah.
And I wanted to give you a chance to give a short introduction on your own, kind of in your own words, if you wanted to.
Yeah. My name is Bobbi Parish. I'm a trauma recovery coach and the executive director of the International Trauma Recovery Coaching Association. I grew up in trauma, steeped in trauma, and it really was very damaging to me. I had pretty severe mental illness from about the ages of 22, probably almost until 35. Was homeless for a while, bounced in and out of psychiatric wards, lost jobs due to my mental illness, just had a really, really rough time. And coming out of that on the other end, when I first started trying to get help, there wasn't a lot of info out there about trauma. It just wasn't even on the books for people, no scientific research. So a lot of the reason it took me so long to get better is because I didn't have trauma-informed help. So I came out of this on the other end and went, this can't be the same for other people. It just can't. So went back and got my master's degree, worked as a therapist for a while, but began to realize the importance of that connection relationship between the healer and the person who wants to be healed. And within the realms, within that box that therapy sets up, it doesn't engender or welcome that connection. So I moved over into trauma recovery coaching and found, for me, the sweet spot for trauma recovery. It is that connection. Trauma disconnects us on a huge scale, disconnects us from ourself. We self-abandon, disconnects us from other people, and then disconnects us from the world at large. So now I focus on teaching people how to become trauma recovery coaches and how to go out in the world and work with trauma survivors and give them that high quality trauma-informed care, and also work really hard on building that relationship. When I was in recovery, bouncing around therapists, psychiatric wards, people kept saying to me, well, because I'd say, I just want to be loved. I just want to be loved. And they'd say, well, no one's going to love you until you learn to love yourself. And it was like, well, okay, then I'm done. I don't know how to do that. So I found a therapist who did that for me. She taught me how to love myself, and she taught me how to love other people. And I tell people interpersonal trauma, so trauma sustained within the course of a relationship, whether it's child abuse, domestic violence, bullying, workplace harassment, trauma sustained within a relationship cannot be completely healed just by talking about it. it has to at least partially be healed in the course of a relationship. And that's what we're about as trauma recovery coaches. So that's me. I am married. My wife and I have 3 teenagers and really, really high food bills. And we separate our time between Bristol in the United Kingdom and here in Dallas, Fort Worth.
I appreciate you sharing. So obviously that's why we're here today.
Yep.
Bobbi is the head of the International Association of Trauma Recovery Coaches. Real quick, do you want to touch on the difference between therapy and coaching?
Yes, absolutely. So therapy, we don't diagnose, we don't treat mental illness, we don't talk about medications, prescribe medication. We help trauma survivors who have gotten through that initial phase of their recovery that needs the skill level of a therapist, a psychiatrist, a psychologist, maybe even some inpatient work. And they're past that point where they're working on those really, really, really heavy parts of their recovery that require a lot of support. And so I use the analogy of someone who's, had a horrible accident. And so they're in the hospital, they're not ambulatory, they can't take care of themselves. So we take trauma survivors after they're able to be ambulatory and they're able to walk on their own 2 feet and they're able to move forward without needing that high level care. And so we come in as peers. We're not experts. We're not higher end. There's no power differential. We come in as experts. Trauma recovery coaching is entirely client-led because we believe that within ourselves, within each one of our clients, they know what they need to do in order to get where they want to get. Maybe they feel a little wobbly about it because they've never had anybody empower them or remind them that they are capable and they're worthy and they're lovable and they're deserving of having a good life. So once we can do some of that work, then we find, they're ready to go. They know where they want to go. And we're just right there next to them. They're driving the car. We're riding shotgun. And just to make sure and mention that if we hit a hard spot, as trauma recovery coaches, we're well versed in safety. So if we have a client who hits a hard spot, maybe they relapse from an addiction or they develop suicidal ideology, then we know to go out and bring back in that team member who has that expertise. So it's all about walking alongside trauma survivors and helping them find that life they love to live.
Yeah, I thank you for explaining that. And this is what I love. And for our listeners, this is how Bobbi and I are connected. So I've been on a personal path of my own recovery for about 15 years. And recently, through recent events that I've gone through, I connected with an amazing person who I love dearly. I'll give her a big shout out, Dr. Paulette Bethel. And Paulette encouraged me to check out your program. And when I looked at it, I found it's exactly what I was looking for. I didn't know what I was looking for. I've been a coach for a long time. I've been a personal trainer, and I'm a mindfulness instructor. I've been a life coach. I've helped people along the way for years. But I didn't know that this is exactly what I was looking for. And what I love about coaching the most is that a coach does not interfere, as you already mentioned, I'm going to repeat, does not interfere with medical attention whatsoever.
No.
With their psychiatrist, psychologist, the therapy that they're going through.
Yep.
It can, one, either assist that, or two, take it from here.
Yes. Either way.
Yeah. And I like to think that it's someone who is metaphorically kind of isolated, kind of goes through what they need to go through to learn a few things, and then they open the door, and then we're standing there to take them back out into the world and help them take what they've learned and apply it. And anytime there's confusion, we always can give someone else advice,
Yep.
but we're not always really good at giving ourselves advice. And that's what we're here for. When when there's confusion, we're here to help them sort through the confusion,
Exactly.
to make the choices with the skills that they've already been learning. Would you say that's a fair assessment?
Absolutely. Find clarity.
Yeah. Yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
a lot of trauma survivors, when they get to me, even though they're ambulatory, their head might still be reeling. Why did they do that to me? You know, what happened? Where did something fall apart? Human beings are creatures of meaning, and we want to know, why did this happen? So sometimes one of the best things we can do for our clients is help them sort that out, so that they have the understanding and clarity that they need in order to say, okay, I get it now. Now I can move on.
And the other thing I love about coaching is that, and this isn't meant as a derogatory statement towards therapists whatsoever, but one of the problems I always had through my self journey is that finding therapists who really didn't seem to have much of a traumatic childhood at all. And they had a school education, but I always felt like there was a disconnect, that they couldn't relate to what I was going through.
Yes.
And with your organization, the people that I've encountered
Mhm.
so far, so
Yeah.
I can only go off my own experience, but it seems like all the people I've experienced have all experienced trauma, and their trauma and their recovery has led them here to help other people. And so they
Exactly.
have that experience. Is that a fair statement with all of your most of your coaches?
Yeah, 99% of our coaches are trauma survivors themselves. And our program is entirely taught by, led by, developed by, and managed by trauma survivors. Every single one of our management team, our teaching team, all of our coach mentors, all of them are trauma survivors. And frankly, I take a lot of pride in that, you know?
I know you do, and I take pride that I am now one of your coach mentors, and
Yes.
I'm really looking forward to being a part of this organization for a very, very, very long
Yes.
time. So to finally tie all this in, that's why I'm here. I'm a trauma recovery coach, certified through Bobbi's program,
Yeah.
in the second phase of the certification process, and
Yep.
yeah, and I'm looking forward to a long relationship. So, okay, so I'd like to shift gears for a second.
Let's do it.
We this was designed as one episode, and I think we're probably going to be in 2, 3, 4 parts before this is over. We have a lot
Yeah.
to talk about. Right now, we have a major precedent in not only our nation but worldwide. We have a very serious issue with a worldwide pandemic,
Yeah.
um, and what we've seen over the last week in particular has just amounted to chaos, and there's so much misinformation,
Yeah.
and in a time like this, pertinent information, correct information, and leadership is so important. So I wanted to take a minute to talk about, and I actually I've talked to a few friends of mine who are experts in different fields, and all of them said this is overdone, uh, which is amazing. This has only been happening for the last 4 to 7 days, and they said this is overdone. It's being talked about too much. It's going to be white noise, and I don't believe so. I think what is critical right now, and this is what I want to have a conversation with you about, is to talk through. This is causing trauma, and this is new trauma. This is triggering old trauma. This
Right.
is this has PTSD written all over it in a
Yeah.
collective form.
Collective PTSD.
Yeah, yeah. My wife said that this morning when she went to the grocery store, that there were people in the grocery store and everyone was calm, everyone was fine, no one's fist fighting. I've seen those videos, sadly. But she said that this wasn't like that at all. But she said the air was different.
Yes.
There was a somber feeling,
Yes.
like it was a funeral, like this was it. This was the end of it.
Right.
And it really got me to thinking. I say got me thinking. I've been all over this from the very beginning, but yeah, we need to talk about this. We need to get the word out.
Yeah. Because if we don't, and we don't address this, then it's going to make it much harder for our world and our individual citizens and our communities to recover from it. You know,
Absolutely,
it's like
absolutely,
I teach people, if you have a child who's being abused, the best thing that we can do for that child is not only to intervene, but to get them help as soon as possible. And the sooner you get that child help, the much more complete and more easy their recovery can be.
Absolutely.
So if
Absolutely.
we don't talk about this and we don't educate people and we don't let them know your feelings are okay, but here's what we can do with them rather than fear mongering, um, it's just, it's the same as when, heaven forbid, World War II, Katrina, the tsunami um, that we had 10 years ago or so now. When there is a collective disaster, there is a collective trauma, and we have to
Right.
name it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And this is exactly what we're experiencing. It kicks in the survival instinct, which is what causes trauma to begin with.
Yes,
And the
exactly.
brain doesn't have the ability to know whether you are legitimately going to be eaten by a bear or destroyed by a weapon right now, or if you are worried about having food or toilet paper.
Right.
And we,
That's our neurobiology. When our limbic system kicks into that, detects that threat and kicks in, our prefrontal cortex, which is reasoning and logic, it goes offline. And that's
absolutely.
designed to react because our brain doesn't want us going, okay, there's a bear. He's about, 10 meters away from me. I think if I just go this way, your brain is set to react,
That's
to
right.
to fight, to flee, and it pours out that adrenaline and that cortisol, and we can, run faster and, hit harder, be stronger. So when we feel that fear, it's if you feel fear and you're not thinking clearly, know that that's the way that your brain is designed to work.
Absolutely. And it's a very intelligent system, but it's also a very simple system.
Yeah.
It's not designed to process, like you said. It's designed to make an immediate decision to get you out of danger.
Yep.
Uh,
Exactly.
but it can't rationalize the difference between a real threat and a perceived threat.
Yep.
And I'm sure as we go along, we'll get deeper into that as we get into the childhood abuse and the childhood trauma.
Right.
But in this case, and the toilet paper is and it's funny. I've made my jokes as well. Okay, I get it, but it is the true indicator that trauma causes us to react in ways we wouldn't normally react. It causes us to become something that we wouldn't rationally ever think we'd become.
Right.
Would you agree with that
I
statement?
agree with that. But I also want to add in the element that panic is contagious.
Absolutely.
So if I'm walking down, if I walk into Costco and I didn't walk into Costco feeling afraid or panicked, but I get there and I see 100 people all with 2 packs of toilet paper in their cart. I hear that I begin to feel that vibration of fear rise within me. And the more I see, and even though maybe initially I can go, wow, okay, I understand they're afraid. I don't need to be afraid. I'm okay. But the more we see it, and then if we walk down the aisle and we see, oh my gosh, there's only 6 packages of toilet paper left, that panic rises even more. And
That's
so
right.
now I'm going to find myself piling toilet paper in my cart, even though I don't need toilet paper, because I'm literally feeding off the panic
That's
of the
right.
around me.
Right.
So even if I, walk home and go, I have no idea why I did that. That was the silliest thing. But in that moment, it was exactly what my body told me I needed to do.
Right. Because if you were in your village and a tribe of raiders rode into your village and your village people from the other side of the village began running in a panic, you didn't have time to stop and ask them why they were running. You just ran with them.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's survival.
It is. It is.
And one person sees the toilet paper's gone and they take a picture and post it on social media and say, the toilet paper's all gone. And then everyone else interprets that, oh my gosh, all the toilet paper's gone. And what do? They run to the store and buy the toilet paper. Now we have the beginning of what we have now.
Yes. And I love it because it's a very symbolic, metaphorical representation of, I think, what is like encapsulates that community fear.
Absolutely.
And I do think that as I think this will hopefully, this issue with the toilet paper will ride its course. The grocery stores will have more toilet paper and we'll be okay. But I wouldn't be surprised if it then moved on to something else,
I agree.
you know.
I agree.
But I don't want anybody to feel bad or to be ashamed because they went out and bought 6 packs of toilet paper.
I agree.
You
Absolutely.
I want people to be more than anything. I want us to be tolerant and gentle with ourselves and tolerant and gentle with one another.
Absolutely. Very well said.
Yeah.
I think I'm a big Carl Jung fan, and Carl Jung is famous for you have to face the monster. And so this discussion is just pointing out the obvious to get people to stop and think of not only why they may have or someone they know may have gone after the toilet paper.
Yeah.
And I've seen this in other instances too, where you've been at a sporting event or a concert and someone throws down a box that maybe has pins or posters or hats or something. And as soon as 2 or 3 people run to the box, everybody's on top of the box. People are grabbing handfuls, and it's just mass chaos. And this is exactly what we've seen here. So I think the awareness is key. That's what we're trying to bring to people. Is just so we can kind of dissect this a little bit and let people know. Just calm down. We can calm down and relax. And this is getting a little bit ahead of where I wanted to get with this, but this is serious. We had a week ago, we had people saying this is not a big deal. 2 weeks ago, and this goes back actually 2 months, but I don't want to get into all that.
Right.
But we had people saying this is no big deal.
Right.
And people repeated it.
No big deal.
No big deal. And people repeated that. There was a lot of misinformation. It's the same thing as the flu. It is not the same thing as the flu. It's a variation of the flu, but it has a higher mortality rate, and it does affect seniors at a larger rate. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to flatten the curve. But this is not the plague.
Nope.
This is not HIV. This
Nope.
is not Ebola. It's not going to wipe out the population. This is not the end of the world.
No.
And as I was trying to correct people on social media, I took charge of this. I intentionally tried to flood my social media page with correct information. I then began to be accused of trying to incite panic, which was not.
What a paradox.
Yeah, what a paradox. But I realized it's because human nature is when we heard it's not a big deal, that meant it's not a big deal, calm down. But then when we start talking about it might be a big deal, suddenly that's tipping the scales completely the other direction. And we live in a polarized society where it's either or. So
Right.
people it's either a big deal or it's not a big deal.
Yes.
The reality is this lies in the middle, right? I mean, this
Absolutely.
is serious.
This is scary, and people will lose their lives. And for me, I look at also the financial aspect of it. People are going to lose their businesses. People are going to, be bankrupted or not be able to feed their families. And those are very serious issues alongside someone in my family is going to get very, very ill and they may pass away.
That's right. That's absolutely
But
right.
there isn't any kind of panic that will help that not happen. And there isn't any kind of panic that will help us mitigate that from happening. And it won't stop it. Either one.
No, you're absolutely right. But what will help is to follow protocol.
Yep.
Slow the spread, self-containment, and try to contain the virus. The self-isolation, try to contain the virus, slow the spread. And what the containment measures are meant to do is not overwhelm the medical system,
Right.
because this virus is serious enough
That it can.
that many people need hospitalized, even young people. I hear a lot of young people say, well, it doesn't affect young people. That is not entirely true. It
No.
does affect young people. Many people need hospitalization and then they recover fully. And the problem is if we overwhelm the entire medical system, then triage begins to happen. Then you force the medical workers to make decisions of who gets treated and who doesn't, simply because there's not enough resources.
Yeah.
Now,
And talk about trauma.
absolutely,
Can you
absolutely.
imagine?
The reality is, not only for the medical workers are making decisions of who gets to live and who doesn't, but even if you're 20, 30, 40 years old and your grandmother is one of those that's not chosen to make it, that also dramatically affects you and causes trauma.
Yeah.
So
Like,
people are going to get sick. Most
Yep.
of them are going to recover. 97% of people are going to recover. 96 to 97, depending on the numbers.
Yeah.
We just want to spread this out over the course of 2 months, 60 days, rather than 14 days.
Right.
And which is the point. So we need to self-isolate, contain, be smart. The toilet paper will make its way back on the shelves.
Yes, it will.
The supply chain is not going to be affected for this for another couple of weeks, if at all.
Yeah.
Right? We just don't want people in large places. It doesn't mean that the warehouse won't put the toilet paper on the truck and the truck driver won't drive to his destination and unload the skids of toilet paper into the grocery store, and that they won't put them back on the shelves. So
Right.
it will be there.
It will be there.
And if it's not, people in general, especially the American people, have a way of pulling together and protecting each other.
Yes. And that, more than anything, is the element that I want people to tap into, because just as fear is contagious, hope and cheer are contagious.
Absolutely.
I don't know if you've seen those, Brad, those clips on the news or on YouTube of the Italian people out on their balconies.
Yes.
singing, You know, that's what I want. That's where I want us to shift from. Is yes, we have a serious situation. It's okay to have a measured, prudent amount of fear. I'm not telling people don't be afraid at all, because if you're not afraid, you might get cavalier.
Absolutely.
You're one of those people who's standing, in the big crowd, exposing yourself to the coronavirus. So a measured, prudent amount of fear. But then let's put together the rest of that emotional energy into, how do we get through this?
Absolutely.
How do I help those people, all of those poor disabled and elderly people who are in nursing home and care homes who aren't getting any visitors?
That's right.
How do I
Absolutely.
help those families who've run out of food? Let's focus on that altruism, because if there's one thing I know, it's that altruism can conquer fear.
Absolutely. And one of the other things that I think is key here is this is going to force people
Yeah.
to finally slow down.
Bingo. Yes.
Yeah. I read the other day that the average American takes in 150 newspapers worth of information per day.
Wow.
No wonder we are collectively going insane.
Right.
Our brain, we can't handle that.
No.
And not only from the information standpoint and the lack of rest, and there's been plenty of studies done with the lack of rest and lack of sleep. It causes mental illness.
It does.
But on top of that, the trauma from the wars and the arguments, the political arguments, the spin, the COVID-19, all this is trauma. We're taking this in. When you read a story about children who are starving in a remote village somewhere, it breaks your heart a little. You have compassion, and unless and the other thing we're not talking about is the shift from the left brain to the right brain, that once you become overloaded, you can't take it. You don't have any more compassion because your brain's like, we can't do this anymore. And it begins to shut the compassion off, which I fear as a society is beginning to happen to us just because of that statistic I just gave you with 150 newspapers.
Right. And, ultimately, when it comes down to the very core of us, we are built for the survival. We have so many mechanisms built into our body, to just survive. And if I need to be looking out for me to survive, compassion's not always a helpful tool.
That's exactly right.
No. So yes, absolutely, we can go get those people. We have to be so prepared to, and I'll bring this up and then walk away from it because it frustrates me. We have to watch for people who are going to prey upon our fear. You know, an
There's a lot of that.
instructor who has the 17,000 bottles of hand sanitizer and was price gouging them. There will be people who will prey upon those moments when we don't have compassion, who will prey upon those moments when we are more panicked and fearful than open and loving and grounded in knowing that we are going to be okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Which also brings me to another point. I've seen a lot of people say, and this leads to the conspiracy thought that this is a hoax. I've seen people say the media is driving your fear, and I want people to understand that the media is a collective. It is a non-human entity,
Yes.
and there are people in the media. But what the media is designed to do, and what has always been designed to do, and now even more so with algorithms, the media is designed to give people what they want.
Yes.
And the more you respond to what they're giving you, the more they're going to give it to you.
Yes.
So it's really driven by us.
Yep.
And it's hard to take that responsibility, to think that I'm partly responsible for the fear that's being handed out because I buy into it.
Right.
And I think that's a critical aspect. It goes along with, I've said for years, my grandparents worked for General Motors. My grandmother worked for General Motors, and they were very big on Buy American when I was young.
Okay.
And I think all the time when I hear people, we're getting a little bit off topic, but it does correlate. I hear people all the time talk about how everything's made in China and we need to buy American made. We need to bring our jobs back, which was the core of the last election.
Right.
Yet they still grocery shop, or they still shop in a place that sells all their products from China. And so if this isn't pointing fingers, if we intentionally shop and buy things that are American made, then those places are forced to carry products that are American made.
Yes.
But
It's
we want to judge, but then we want to survival instinct. We want to save money, but then we want to complain and point everywhere else. And this media concept is the exact same thing.
well, and it's the element of accountability. You know, what is it in my life that I am going to feed? And what is it in my life that I'm going to starve? So I'm not going to pay as much attention to the fear and the panic and the fear mongering. Instead, I'm going to focus more of my attention on, okay, you know, I'm home from work for so many weeks. My kids are home from school. What are we going to do with this time? How are we going to, like you said, slow down? How are we going to take advantage of this time and do something constructive rather than spend all of these weeks in fear, you know, waiting for the toilet paper to come back?
Right.
You know,
Right. Yeah.
I mean, we have choices, and we need to feed what we want to grow and starve what we don't want to grow.
I posted on social media the other day and said, this self-containment period is a great time for you to finish the projects that you've been wanting to do.
Right.
Um, and so many people jumped all over. So they're cleaning out closets, they're laying their tile floors, people are painting, this is the beauty in all this. Going back to the balcony, people are singing on the balcony.
Yep.
I would imagine there was a time in history where people in that town often sang together on a balcony.
I would imagine, yeah.
I don't know if it was 30 years ago, 70 years ago, or 300 years ago, but I guarantee that is not the first time that's happened. And it's beautiful that's happened. I've seen some reports in China that in some of the areas where they had the outbreaks and they've self-contained, that the air quality has significantly improved just in the last 4 to 6 weeks.
Wow.
I know in Italy that in that some of the canals are, because of people are home, the canals are clean. They're clear. They're able to see the bottom. So there's a lot of good that's going to come from this as well.
Yes.
It's also going to change the way we live, right? So I work with IT students, and I've heard all week all their companies are sending people home to work from home, and we both know all those people aren't going to come back to the office in 2 months.
They're not going to want to.
No, no. But companies are also going to find that they can have their productivity probably went up. They can have their employees at home. Their costs are going to go down for their overhead.
Yep.
And so we're going to see more of that. We're going to see them education. A lot of the students are being homeschooled or going online, and universities and brick and mortar school systems are going to be able to teach online. So there are so many changes coming from this. There's no doubt it's going to change the way we live, but it's not Armageddon. It's not.
No,
It's
and I
not
think
Stephen King novel, and we're not going to be,
no,
bringing a cart through the town and piling our dead onto the cart to bury them or burn them or whatever they did during the plague. It's
exactly.
just not going to happen.
No. But I guess what I want more than anything is for people to walk away from this, watching this or listening to this, and knowing that however they feel, they feel. How we feel does not have to inform our behavior. So it's okay to feel, but invest your time and your knowledge and your behavior on something altruistic and personally developmental. One of my daughters is learning Dutch.
That's very cool.
I told her you need to learn Mandarin Chinese. It's out there. But yeah, find something that you've never had the time to do and always wanted to do. If you've been working, 80 hours a week on the job and now all of a sudden you're working from home, what a beautiful opportunity to connect with your spouse and your children.
That's right.
And
That's right.
have that Monopoly marathon, or let the
Right.
kids teach you how to play Mario Kart. Whatever it is, go play soccer out in the backyard. I understand the flip side of this too is that children are home from school. So I don't want moms and dads to feel like if I feel overwhelmed, I'm not a good mom or dad.
That's right. That's right.
I think there's so much of that, Brad, out there right now. If I don't buy toilet paper, I'm not a good person. If I buy toilet paper, I'm a hoarder. I'm not a good person. If I don't go to the movie with my friends when they really want me to, I'm a bad friend. This happens, I'm a bad mom. No. Let's kick those thoughts right out of our head.
Yeah, I actually saw on social media people saying I have to go to the store to buy toilet paper for my family, but I'm afraid people are going to judge me.
Yes.
I saw that several times.
Yes.
And that's exactly, and it was funny. They were being funny, and
It's true.
everyone deals with trauma differently, and I don't judge anyone making jokes out of this, unless they're cruel. That's a completely different conversation. But there's an element of truth to every statement. They didn't say it unless they thought it.
Exactly. And I've talked with moms who have really large families, like 8, 9, 10 kids. And so they go to the grocery store to do their traditional weekly shopping. And people are like, you're hoarding food. What's the matter with you? Put some of that back. And that's not what's happening. But yeah, some people will reach to anger. Some people will reach to bitterness. Some people will reach to selfishness. And we just hope that eventually they come to understand that there's another way to do it.
Yes, absolutely. So I want to run down. I put a little list together of advice I want to give people, and I'd like you to chime in wherever you feel
Okay.
necessary. The first thing is, and I would like you to particularly chime in on this one. The first one is that everyone needs to understand that we're safe, right? How critical is that to trauma?
Yeah. Well, absolutely. If we don't feel safe, then we're stuck in our fear-based responses. It's important for everyone to focus on that universal truth, because when we don't feel safe, we react out of fear. And when we react out of fear is when, perhaps unhealthy behaviors and, thoughts and beliefs.
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
they-
And I think there's also there's an underlying element of gratitude that goes along with that. If you can stop and realize that you are safe no matter what's happening, then you begin to understand that your safety is priority, your family's safety is priority. And despite the fact that this may cause some financial pain for a lot of people, and that life may change for some people,
Yeah.
the fact that you are safe and that your family is safe is a building block to be able to navigate through the rest of
Yes,
it.
yes.
And yeah,
And I especially encourage parents to focus on that, because our children read us.
yes,
We are very fearful. If we are panicky, then our children will perceive that.
that's actually that's absolutely right. That's a good reminder all the time. The children are always watching,
Yep.
and humans learn more by observing behavior, as we've seen with the toilet paper, than they do the words they hear.
Yep.
That is probably a full hour's topic for for another episode right there for sure.
Yes.
So we're we want to remind people that you're safe. This isn't the plague. This isn't the end of the world. We hope. I mean, I'm not a prophet. I can't tell you, but I would say there's probably a 99.797% chance that this is not the end.
Right. We've watched China work on recovery. They have now reached the other side where the cases are dramatically dropping. So I think we can look at that experience and go, okay.
That's right. That's right. And South Korea, we've seen South Korea get ahead of it with containment
Yes.
and the testing, and they never did struggle with this. They've been on the right side of this whole thing. So hopefully we can do that with containment. We get the test kits. We're behind having the test kits in, but they are starting to come in, and hopefully we can begin screening people and move forward. So
Yeah.
we're safe. We're safe. We're not going to die. The toilet paper is going to be there next week. The food's going to be there next week. If not, your neighbors are there to help. So we're safe, right?
Yeah.
So with that said, stop and take a deep breath, right?
Yes.
Deep breath. It may be the single best medicine for stress that there is. And then we're not talking about meditation and mindfulness. We have a different conversation about that with
Right.
people who are at different levels of trauma. We're just talking about giving your body what it needs and
Right.
stopping and taking a deep breath.
Yes. Take deep breaths. In through the nose, because your nose has more capillaries than your mouth and your throat. So in through the nose, out through the mouth. Breathe from your diaphragm, because one of the things that does when you breathe from the diaphragm is it pushes your diaphragm back against your vagus nerve, which has a wonderful capacity to bring calm. So
Absolutely.
a lot of science behind that stuff. And take
Yeah. And not to get too crazy scientific, but to expand on that,
Yeah.
the vagus nerve sends signals to the amygdala,
Yes.
which is the gateway.
Right.
And
That's correct.
the amygdala tells you and the example I use about the amygdala is if you're walking through Walmart parking lot and you hear a song playing in someone else's car, is your favorite song. And what's your favorite song, Bobbi?
California, Hotel California, the Eagles.
Hotel California. You walk through Walmart parking lot, someone pulls up, they're listening to Hotel California. You're singing Hotel California as you walk in the store, and a bear comes around the corner. Right?
Okay.
You now have to run or fight. I don't recommend that you fight. I recommend that you run. Of course, bears run fast, but what are you going to do? You run away. When you recall the memory,
Yeah.
you no longer heard Hotel California.
Yes.
Because the amygdala said, this is not important to our survival, shut it down.
Right.
And that's the best analogy I can give. So the amygdala is the gateway, and it decides when we're stressed, what's important, what's not. That's why we become tunnel vision. So the vagus nerve sends a signal to the amygdala saying all is good. We're able to breathe because we hold our breath when we're stressed.
Right.
The vagus nerve says, we're able to breathe, and the amygdala says, everything's calm, and it helps to assist the vagus nerve in telling the rest of the body, bring it down.
Yeah, we're okay.
And it's that calming effect when we breathe deep and we feel it over our body. It's that I call it the satisfactory breath.
I love it.
Yeah. When, you breathe, but when you breathe deep enough into a certain level, you feel the difference of the breath.
Yes.
And I think that's what it is right there.
Yeah.
So we just want people to breathe.
Yep.
And it brings our rationale back. It brings back our decision-making skills. Yeah. And our compassion.
Yes.
Yeah. I might also recommend that we minimize our access to social media and news.
Yeah.
Anytime, but particularly right now.
Yeah.
The-
We talked about what you feed grows.
That's absolutely right. And I've noticed a difference. And I'm sure everyone listening has as well. I see people all the time on social media say, I need to take a break. And they will get off social media for a few days. There's a reason for that. It goes back to that 150 newspaper thing.
Yep.
Brains aren't designed to take in this much information this fast.
It's overwhelmed.
Yeah, for crying out loud, I was playing with Lincoln Logs for hours when I was a kid. When I was 7, and 2-year-olds are swiping all over the place. It's mind-boggling, and I don't think evolution's caught up with science yet. So take a break.
Yeah. So on all the more, you've got time with your kids now. Create a huge fort out of something. Do something creative, do something constructive.
Absolutely. And journal.
Sure.
If you're overwhelmed with what's going on, write it down. I don't care if you burn it and throw it in the trash afterwards and no one ever reads it. Get it out.
Yes.
Absolutely get it out.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Or call a trauma recovery coach and book an appointment. I'm sorry. That was shameless, right?
Or if it helps you more, if another expressive, we talk about these expressive, modalities. So journaling, does it help you to draw? Would it help you to needlepoint? Some kind of, it's that creative process which allows us to express that part of our brain and helps us to go ahead and calm and focus.
Yes, absolutely. Very therapeutic. My stepmother is a combat veteran, and she found a program that utilizes art for therapy for veterans with PTSD, and she swears by it. Just absolutely swears by it.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely, because it allows us to express things without language, which can be really frightening when you are really traumatized. So if you can express without language, it gives you a safeness.
Absolutely. So the last thing I want to say is tell people to just check in on your loved ones.
Yes.
Your friends, your family, just have normal conversation. I know I don't even want to tell people not to talk about what's going on, because sometimes it helps to talk about it.
Yep.
But we have to be careful not getting sucked into the negativity.
Right.
It's easy for people. Misery loves company, right? And if it's contagious. You said it was contagious a minute ago.
Right.
And if you have a friend or family who is caught up, try to be a positive influence for them.
Yeah.
And if we all do that for each other, we all have our moments, we all have our meltdowns. I felt that I've had a lot going on this week. I felt the stress myself because I took it upon myself to try to educate people what was going on. I'm still worried about my family, and I've got some other things going on.
Right.
I got caught up myself, and I caught myself.
Yeah.
And some people aren't trained to teach themselves, or haven't been through what I've been through, or aren't at that level of awareness yet. So we can be that for each other.
Yes.
Yeah.
I say the same thing with with our trauma survivors. Sometimes they need someone to vent to, but sometimes they just need someone to be with socially and not talk about any of the hard stuff.
Absolutely.
Together, and laugh. And, now's the time to put together that family chat thread that just focuses on jokes or memes. Now's the time to start playing words with friends again. I have my wife and I, who are separated right now because of what's going on, I put a show on the TV and I get her on Zoom and I turn the laptop around and we watch television together. Because,
Yeah.
it's we watch television, we binge on Netflix, when we are together. So find
But
ways
but
to
but
engage with your loved ones.
but yeah, but don't watch doomsday movies.
No, no, no. We're watching cooking shows.
Speaking of that whole media thing, all the I don't want to mention any of them by name, but a lot of the television subscription services have jumped all over this, and there are doomsday movies all over the place.
Again,
They're taking advantage of people's fear, giving them what they want.
right, because they're going to watch their numbers and they're going to go, okay, the highest numbers are for these pandemic contagion shows. Let's find more, or let's push these to the top. When you sign into Netflix, there's some that are right there. So again, just be careful what you feed and nurture in your life.
So this is exactly what self-care is about. It's not participating in things just because everyone else is.
Yes.
It's taking the time to think about what is best for you and not participating in things that are detrimental to your mental and physical health.
Exactly. It's that self-awareness that allows you to set boundaries. Think of boundaries about, I'm not talking to that coworker who's such a jerk. Boundaries can be such a things like, I'm not going to watch the news for more than half an hour today. I'm not going to be on social media more than 20 minutes today. We can set boundaries in terms of what we don't want to feed.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And always, and in addition, not only check on your elderly. They may need to just hear your voice.
Yes.
So we should not forget them.
Yeah.
We should intentionally include them.
Yeah. Yeah. Gather the whole family around that phone and sing songs to grandma as she's isolated where she is. I've seen people stand outside the nursing homes and things outside the windows of their loved ones, and wave at them. So yes, choose to feed the compassion. Choose to feed the compassion. That's what's going to get through. That's what's going to, get us through.
Yeah, and like we said earlier, hopefully that'll make us slow down and realize our priorities and look at the things that we've gotten caught up in life and that we're neglecting and we're forgetting. And that's a reminder for all of us, and me included.
Yes,
Sure.
exactly.
So, okay.
Thank you for being an amazing host.
Well, thank you for being an amazing guest. This has been this conversation was so natural. I knew it would be. This is what I'm trying to do on my podcast: is just have conversations that help people and clarity. I'm looking for clarity. I want to talk about the truth and help people be armed with the truth to make clear and concise decisions that benefit them. And you didn't disappoint. We're going to talk about. April is Child Abuse Awareness Month and Sexual Assault Awareness Month. So we are going to do. You and I are going to have a couple of discussions about sexual assault and child abuse and trauma and how that works.
Right.
And I imagine we have a lot to talk about between your story and my story and what we have to offer people.
Yeah.
And then we're hoping to have you back in June.
Okay.
To talk about NPE status and how that causes trauma in people who discover their NPE status. That is a big thing. A lot of people they say, I don't understand what the big deal is, and I don't, your father is your father, and
Right.
because they can't relate. But there is a lot of trauma that comes along with this. And I'm really looking forward to you and I talking about that for June, which we've deemed NPE Awareness Month.
Yes. And I think something that if you want to, something to team up along with NPE and do one show on would be adoption trauma. So if you wanted, just a suggestion, if you wanted to do one show that said, okay, we've been talking about the NPE thing, now let's dabble a bit over into the area of adoption because it has some similar types of issues.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Just
that's a great idea. That's a great idea, especially for June. I mean, that really fits. So thank you for bringing that up.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I think that would be a good one.
Well, Bobbi, I want to thank you so much for joining me, and BobbiLParish.com. We'll put your information on our website, and if anyone wants to look up the International Association of Trauma Recovery, I mean, we'll put it on our website, but you can Google it as well.
Yeah.
But I certainly want people to come to my website.
Yes, absolutely we do.
Pushing
Yep. Okay.
Again, Bobbi, thank you for joining me, and I will really look forward to talking to you soon.
Okay. Talk to you soon,
Thanks,
Brad.
Bobbi. Take care. You too. Bye-bye. Okay, I want to thank you for watching. Again, this is our second podcast. We greatly appreciate your support. We really want to ask that you like, share, and subscribe, that you share this and tell as many of your friends as you can. And help us try to get the word out that we're committed to bringing you information to help you make better decisions, to help enrich your life and enhance your mental and physical health and well-being. So with that said, again, thank you, and please look forward to new upcoming podcasts in the future. And until we see you again, please take care of yourself.